Hey, it's Tom Landry. Happy, absolutely amazing summer. I hope all is well with you. It's August, and here's a look at some of the updates and some of the things that have been on my mind as we head into the last part of the summer here. First and foremost, it's been a wonderful year. A little update on Maddie and what's been going on with her. She's right now at the camp with Ripple Effect out on Cow Island. She's absolutely loving that. She also had another highlight camp, which is called Croca. You can see the link right there. This is in the western part of New Hampshire. A little bit hippy dippy. There were very few shoes being worn, but she absolutely loved it. She went there for a rock climbing intensive week-long camp sleepover. So highly recommend those. Amy and Maddie learned about that at the Common Ground Country Fair. We've been busy. Obviously, as you know, we have purchased an inn in historic Jackson Village called Riverwood. If you want more information, reach out to me on that. We still have a couple of investment slots available for a property that is already being transformed and will be open just in time for leaf peeping season. So reach out to me. And if you're on Instagram, you can follow some of the teasers that we're putting out there at Stay Riverwood. That's the @ sign Stay Riverwood. The other thing is, we're heading overseas for a little while here at the end of next week, and we'll be in Munich and we'll be in Austria. So first time really in Germany. Those airplane stops just in the airports really don't count in my opinion. So if you have tips, you know, people travel all over the world, and when you share stuff with them, they're like, I've been there, or I know somebody there, you have to go to so and so or this type of place. Definitely let us know. We would love your recommendations. Looking forward to that trip. Playing right off of that, people often ask, Tom, how do you go on these trips? How do you make it work? Number one, I never stop working. Number two, I have a wonderful team that helps when I'm away. Usually the trips are pretty short, but the other things are tips that I learned years ago when I worked in the food industry and I traveled quite a bit. I opened up some credit cards that had travel points. In particular, the American Express Platinum card is just absolutely wonderful. The Delta Reserve card is another card that we have. We get into those airport lounges, which is really wonderful. If you've been in them, you know what I'm talking about. And number two, of course, when you charge your soda or your gas, you're getting points to go on a trip. Be surprised how that adds up. So our flights are usually free or very, very discounted. And then the next thing we signed up for, and Amy really is the guru of this, is something called Home Exchange. And you can see the website link for that right there. Highly recommend it. So with that, we're swapping one of our Airbnbs or our second home, and sometimes our primary residence as well, for other homes. And this isn't, you're staying in some shack or even some Airbnb. A lot of folks that have these home exchanges don't even Airbnb their house at all. They are literally doing this with people who are going to take really good care of their home. And we have stayed in some literally multi-million-dollar houses. One in the Upper West Side in Manhattan was stunning. I think the home was worth about $7.5 million, and we're exchanging it for something here in Portland, which is much, much less of a home. So understand these are wonderful properties all around the world that you can choose from, and if you can get your flights for close to free, and you can stay for free, wow, you're gonna eat anywhere you go. It opens up the world of possibilities. So I highly recommend both of those things, and that's how we have sort of cracked the code of doing this. The next thing on that email is this idea of is it a buyer's market? And in a lot of ways, it sort of is, depending on exactly where you are and the type of property you have. The market has sort of shifted on a fulcrum. Now, it's not a surprise to somebody like me who's monitoring the market all the time, and I've been warning people about this, or at least sellers about this inevitability, to get on the market well before July 4th weekend. That is, again, that official start to summer, and this is a bit of a repeat, but that's the official start to summer where buyers get distracted. So if you can be on by the middle of June, you're going to do a lot better, and make sure your house is priced reasonably. Obviously, some people can, and some people push the top of the market. So we are absolutely seeing things linger on the market longer, take longer to sell, take price reductions. The inventories are up significantly for condos and multifamilies. Those are the softest of the market. But single families, again, especially ones that are priced right and in highly desirable locations, continue to sell very, very well. So it's this tale again of two markets. And lower on the email, you can certainly see the stats, and that's borne out there. Some of those stats, as you can see, we're breezing through that, are quite shocking with the amount of inventory levels and the months of inventory supply that is out there. So it's interesting. Now, who you choose, obviously, is more important than ever. So choose wisely, sellers. There were times during the height of COVID where you could probably have written for sale on a paper plate and had multiple offers. That's not the case anymore. You need an agent who levels with you, who understands the market, and is informed enough and confident enough to tell you sometimes the number you may not want to hear, but the number you need to hear to sell your home. And keep in mind, and I say this frequently to sellers, it's still a home run, right? If you bought your house as little as 5 years ago, you're up 60, 70, even sometimes 100% over what you paid. We're looking at these numbers all the time, and it is shocking. You know, a home that sold for $400,000 in 2019 is worth $750,000, $800,000 now. You may not be able to get the 900 your neighbor got 2 years ago during a bidding war of COVID, but you're still going to hit that home run. If you are banking on the grand slam bottom of the ninth, you may strike out. So don't go in that direction. You should be able to do well if you listen to that agent, and as importantly, if that agent is highly informed. So that really ties those two things in together, this idea of the buyer's market happening, but also can sellers succeed? You bet they can. It all starts with that most important decision you're going to make of listing with the most accomplished agent in your area. Okay, the next thing down on the list ties right into this idea of buyers and sellers participating in an active way in their sale. You the buyer, you the seller, are the most important member of the real estate team. How you've taken your care of your house over the years, how you as a buyer have protected your credit over the years, being prepared as you go into that relationship with that agent eventually to list your home or work with you as a buyer is an important step. However, that agent obviously needs to be somebody who's highly qualified, and you choosing the right person, asking the right questions is critical. But even after that happens, even after you select that person, you should be asking good questions, stay actively engaged. You'd be surprised how many listings we look at as a buyer broker with buyers, and we can't believe how bad the pictures are. Literally with toilet seats up. It is absolutely shocking, and shame on the agent, but I hate to say it, shame on those sellers for not being that active participant. Do not assume just because an agent has their license that they're going to bring their best toys to you or even know what they're doing, especially agents who do it part-time, that are new to the market, or on the other side of this, who have had great success over the years and are sort of checked out, where sometimes you have that bait and switch happen where I'm going to meet with the top agent now and I'm going to be passed off to the junior agent, or I'm working with a mega team, you know, there's a relationship happening and then I'm amorphous, I'm working with some administrative assistant. Don't settle. It's the most important decision of your life. You being an active participant in that is mission critical. Ask good questions. You can certainly go on to websites and ChatGPT or Claude, etc., to learn what you should be asking your listing agent or your buyer agent. But then along the way, make sure you are looking out for you and studying the listing after it's listed, looking at the text after it's listed, and again, pushing that person. I'm not going to say the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but sometimes if you're nice about it and you push that person, they're going to give you better service on both the buy and the sell side. So you are the MVP. The next thing down here is this idea of the lowest commission. I recently had a seller choose me over another agent, and she said to me, "Hey Tom, this agent's offering to the listing for 2% commission." Number one, I said, look, you know, we're at a certain time in our lives where we all know you can't get something for nothing, right? If you pay a discount, you are going to get something discounted, whether they say that or it's implied. Don't be fooled by that. There's nothing in this world that comes for free, and you usually get what you paid for. I list a few things there about, do you go to the cheapest place to do something as simple as getting your hair cut? Why would you choose an agent that's going to cut corners? The other side of what they often do, some of these agents and these discount agencies, they will tell you the commission. Let's just use 6% as a standard. They will keep 4% of that for themselves as the listing agent and give another buyer broker 2%. That's an uneven split. It's not in your best interest as a seller. It's another great question to make sure of. Don't just sign those documents, read them, study them, ask good questions. Even if you're out of the market here and you have questions about this, feel free to reach out. I help many of my friends, even as far away in purchasing out of the country or in Puerto Rico or on the West Coast. I can help you ask those good questions. I can be your sounding board. You have a friend in the business. But once again, don't be tricked by the promise of that discount agent, that lower fee. You're going to pay for it one way or the other, and I would rather have you pay more commission and get $10,000 and $20,000 and $30,000 more than to think you're saving money only to leave that money on the table because that person was not qualified. One of the crazy things too, and you'll see it right there, is the level of licensing. I recently had a seller reach out to me and say, hey Tom, what's the difference between a sales agent and a designated broker? Well, it's a world of difference. I hold the highest level license you can hold in the state of Maine, and that means I have over 20 years of experience to bring to bear to help my clients. We've seen almost every scenario out there. You're going to get real advice, you're going to get informed advice, and advice that sometimes, again, may not be what you think you want to hear, but it's what you should hear. We can keep you out of hot water. We can make sure you sell versus sit. And on the buy side, we can make sure that you get the best deal. And sometimes that means paying what the seller wants or more, but also sometimes, just as I had recently, where we helped somebody do the negotiations out of inspections and get over $20,000 of those concessions. So look at those sales levels from initial, day one, that sales agent just getting their license with no experience can help that person with the most important financial decision of their lives. So why would you, for the same amount of money, choose somebody with no experience or very little experience and very little, if any, track record versus somebody who's highly experienced? So even if you're not in the market, guys, keep this in mind. Make the referral. Be your brother and sister's keeper. It's so, so important. And those referrals are fantastic because when we get one, obviously, it's an instant connection. It's an instant trust, and it is all about trust. Finally, so here we got the next thing before we get into the stats, is this idea of the real estate commission settlement. So about 2.5 or so years ago, the National Association of Realtors settled a class action lawsuit around how commissions were handled. So there were two basic things which came out of it, where we can no longer, where in the past we had to put the commission, the cooperating commission, in MLS, where a buyer broker would know what they're being paid if they sold 123 Main Street. Now we can't do that. So that buyer broker will bring in a buyer. They usually have a conversation with us about the commission that the seller is offering or none, and then they put it in the documentation when they send us the offer. The second thing which came out of that was the idea that you as a buyer with your buyer broker, when you first go to see that house, you have to sign a buyer broker agreement. And that should be something that's explained to you, what the terms are in there. And the idea there, again, is in the old days, we could go out and look at 3 or 4 houses. Maybe we were supposed to get a buyer broker agreement signed. Many people didn't. Now, the first house you show with them, unless they're the listing agent, you're supposed to have a buyer broker agreement signed prior to going to those homes. Again, that's a consumer protection thing, because if that seller's not offering any commission, you as the buyer will have to pay your buyer broker. So what happens right now, what happens in Greater Portland, just to give a summary of sort of how that class action lawsuit translated to how we're doing business here, because I hear this very frequently, and I just had a question on it the other day. Basically, nothing has changed in how I do business and how most of the agents in Portland and Greater Portland do business. We are still telling sellers it is in your best interest, seller, to pay the buyer broker's commission. That means usually we're talking 5 to 6% total, right? So let's use 6% standard commission. We take that, we split it 50-50, 3% to a buyer broker, 3% to us, and the seller, out of the seller's proceeds, is paying that buyer broker. Why are we doing it that way? Because it is very difficult for a buyer outside of that deal, independent of the offer, to come up with the money to pay that buyer broker. Now, most buyers are going to walk around with a buyer broker. They want somebody there to help them with that big, important decision, one of those most important decisions of their lives. And that person's going to be expected to be paid. And once again, unless they are incredibly wealthy, that buyer broker is not going to be paid by the buyer. That buyer broker and the buyer are expecting you as the seller to pay them. So it's in your best interest, the way that we feel about this, to continue doing business the way that we were doing business all along and to not cheap out. If you do that, your ultimately offer is going to be less. So you're going to pay it one way or the other. We think this is a better way to go, and it has certainly worked well over the last 2.5 years since the settlement went into effect. The other thing I'll share with you is the idea of us splitting that commission evenly. It's important, and it ties into what I was saying before. We want to make sure that that reputation, and what we have is this reputation out there that we treat buyer brokers the way that we're being treated, and they know when I sell your house and my name is in front of your house, they know, that buyer broker knows, that I'm going to treat them the way that they should be treated. I'm going to treat them like a professional who deserves to be paid, and that's one of the many reasons why we sell more properties in Portland than anyone, because other agents know we're going to take good care of them if they bring us a good buyer. So finally, we've got the stats. Some of those numbers are absolutely shocking. Take a look at them. Single families, stable, solid. You're going to do really well if you prep, price appropriately, and get on the market and the presentation is right. Condos, a bit of a mixed bag there. Inventories are up, things are sitting on the market, but price per square foot has been stable. A bit of a glut there. We expect that to continue, and to continue to pivot to a buyer's market for condominiums. The last category, multifamilies, dramatic increases in days on market, current inventories, and that absorption rate down at the bottom there. So take a look at that. It's interesting stuff. If you have any questions about the stats, obviously let us know. You can also go on to, and it should be coming out next week, Maine Biz and their website. They post my press release every month where we follow the stats, and there'll be a little bit more information there. So hey, happy summer, enjoy it. Shoot me those recommendations on Munich and Austria, and I look forward to seeing you in a month, and maybe before. And keep me in mind, we need and highly value any referrals to buyers and sellers. So thank you so much. Be well.